5 months can feel like an eternity when a story is surrounded by silence. 5 months of waiting, speculation, unanswered questions, and moments that seem to disappear beneath the noise of an ever-moving entertainment world. Yet sometimes, silence does not mean a story is over. Sometimes it means something has been sitting quietly in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to emerge. And that is exactly what makes this moment surrounding Zhang, Linghe and chasing Jade feel so intriguing. A hidden battle report connected to his journey on the project has reportedly come to light after 5 months, reopening a chapter that many fans thought had already faded into the past. Suddenly, the old memories feel new again. Scenes that once seemed ordinary begin to carry a different weight. Small details that may have been overlooked suddenly feel important. And the longer you look at the timeline, the more fascinating the story becomes, because 5 months is not merely a number. It represents distance, reflection, anticipation, and the strange way time can transform the meaning of something that happened long ago. When Chasing Jade entered the spotlight, the attention surrounding Zhang Linghe was already intense. Every appearance, every photograph, every glimpse behind the scenes had the potential to become a topic of conversation. But working on a drama is very different from simply appearing in front of a camera for a few minutes. It demands patience, discipline, repetition, emotional control, and an ability to return to the same character again and again until the fictional world begins to feel almost real. What viewers eventually see on screen is only the polished surface of an enormous process. Behind every dramatic expression is preparation. Behind every emotional scene are countless adjustments. Behind every moment that looks effortless may be hours of work that nobody outside the production ever witnesses. That hidden labor is what makes the idea of a battle report so captivating, because it invites viewers to look beyond the finished image and imagine the journey that created it. For Zhang Linghe, the Chasing Jade period represented another important chapter in his rapidly developing career. His presence had already attracted enormous attention, but each new project carried its own expectations. Fans wanted to see what he would bring to the screen. Viewers wanted to know whether he could transform himself once again and make another character feel completely different from the roles that came before. And with that expectation came pressure. The entertainment industry can be unforgiving. A performer can spend months preparing for something, only for the public to judge it within minutes. A single photograph can become a discussion. A single expression can be analyzed repeatedly. A single behind-the-scenes moment can suddenly become part of a much larger narrative. That is why the discovery of material connected to the project after such a long delay feels almost like opening a forgotten drawer and discovering something that had been waiting there all along. The phrase hidden battle report itself creates a sense of mystery, because it suggests a record of a journey rather than a simple promotional update. It makes us wonder what happened during those months when the public saw only fragments. What was happening behind the scenes while everyone waited for official information? What moments were documented but not immediately shared? What details might have been considered too ordinary at the time, only to become meaningful once enough distance had passed? These questions are impossible to answer completely without verified information, but they are precisely what makes the story so emotionally compelling. The mystery is not necessarily about a secret scandal or some dramatic revelation. Sometimes the most powerful stories are about work, patience, exhaustion, determination, and the quiet moments that never receive the same attention as glamorous photographs. Imagine the atmosphere surrounding a major production. Cameras are being prepared. Costumes are being adjusted, lights are repositioned, crew members move quickly through the set while actors wait for the next scene. There may be long stretches of silence followed by sudden bursts of activity. Someone checks the script, someone calls for another take. A performer steps back into character, even after the previous emotional scene has left its mark. In that environment, every day becomes part of a larger battle against time. The production schedule continues moving regardless of fatigue, weather, pressure, or expectations. And when viewers eventually watch the completed drama, they rarely think about how many small victories were required to create each scene. That is why a report appearing months later can feel so significant. It can remind fans that the finished product was built from countless unseen moments. Zhang Linghe's appeal during this period was not simply about appearance. It was also about the sense of intensity he could bring to a character. There is something particularly fascinating about watching an actor inhabit a role while knowing that the person behind the character has his own completely different personality and life. The transformation creates a kind of illusion, and audiences willingly enter that illusion. But behind it is a performer constantly making choices: how to move, how to speak, how to react, when to remain silent, when to reveal emotion, and when to hold something back. Those decisions may look natural when the final scene appears on screen, but naturalness is often the result of enormous effort. That makes the delayed battle report feel almost like a time capsule. It connects the present audience with a period that has already passed. 5 months ago, certain moments may have seemed insignificant. Today, with more context and hindsight, those same moments can feel strangely precious. Fans who followed Chasing Jade during its development may remember the excitement, the anticipation, the theories, the photographs, the discussions, and the constant curiosity about what was happening behind the scenes. Then time moved forward. Other projects arrived. Other headlines dominated social media. The world changed. Yet now something from that earlier period has resurfaced, pulling everyone back toward the atmosphere of the production. And that is where the emotional power of this story truly begins. It is not simply about information appearing after 5 months. It is about memory. Fans often form emotional connections with projects long before they ever watch the finished episodes. They follow casting announcements, promotional images, filming updates, costume reveals, interviews, and tiny behind-the-scenes fragments. They become familiar with a project while it is still incomplete. In a strange way, they grow alongside it. When the production eventually ends, there can be a sense of separation. The actors move on, the crew moves on, the audience waits, and then, months later, an unexpected piece of the past appears and suddenly that emotional connection returns. For many viewers, Zhang Linghe's journey through Chasing Jade may therefore feel less like an old story and more like a memory suddenly brought back to life. The delayed material can make people look again at the entire period with fresh eyes. Instead of seeing only the final performance, fans may begin imagining the long road that led there. The hours spent preparing, the pressure of expectations, the repeated scenes, the moments of concentration between takes, the quiet waiting, the uncertainty that exists on any production before everything finally comes together. Those unseen details can make a finished performance feel even more meaningful. There is also something deeply human about delayed recognition. Not everything receives attention at the moment it happens. Sometimes people are too busy looking forward to notice what is happening around them. Sometimes a moment is buried beneath hundreds of other updates. Sometimes information simply takes time to reach the public. When it eventually emerges, the emotional response can be surprisingly strong because viewers realize they were looking at a small piece of a much bigger story without knowing its importance at the time. That feeling becomes even stronger when the person at the center of the story is Zhang Linghe, whose career has been watched closely by a huge audience. Every new role brings questions about growth. Has he become more confident? Has his acting changed? Does he carry himself differently? Can he create a new emotional atmosphere? Can he make viewers forget the actor and believe in the character? These questions follow performers throughout their careers, and each production becomes another test. A battle report connected to Chasing Jade can therefore be interpreted as another window into that evolution, showing not just a character but the journey of an actor continuing to develop. The title itself suggests that something hidden has finally seen the light, and that wording creates an irresistible sense of anticipation. But perhaps the most interesting part is what viewers choose to do with the information once it appears. Some will search for every detail. Others will revisit old footage. Some will compare the newly surfaced material with earlier images. Others will focus on Zhang Linghe's expressions, posture, interactions, or apparent changes throughout the production period. Social media can transform these tiny observations into enormous conversations within hours. One previously overlooked detail can suddenly become the center of thousands of discussions. Yet beneath all of that excitement is a quieter story about time. 5 months is long enough for emotions to change. It is long enough for a project to move from something happening in the present to something remembered as part of the past. It is long enough for fans to wonder what might have been forgotten. And when an old piece of information returns, it can create the strange sensation of standing between two moments at once. We are seeing something from months ago with the eyes of today. That is perhaps why the idea of a hidden report carries so much emotional weight. It reminds us that entertainment history is not always created by the biggest headlines. Sometimes it lives in small records, production details, photographs, observations, and fragments that remain unseen until someone brings them back into the conversation. A project can continue telling its story long after filming has ended. The cameras may stop rolling, but the memories remain. The people involved continue their careers, the audience moves to new stories, and yet a single resurfaced detail can reopen the door. For Zhang Linghe, that door leads back to chasing Jade, back to the atmosphere surrounding the production, and back to the period when expectations were still being built. It allows fans to imagine what that journey looked like before the final product became familiar. It gives the project another emotional layer, because suddenly the audience is not only watching what was created but thinking about how difficult it may have been to create it. There is something beautiful about that process. Acting is often described through the moments that appear on screen, but the unseen struggle is equally important. The actor has to keep going when the excitement fades. He has to repeat a scene even after performing it several times. He has to maintain emotional continuity despite interruptions. He has to step into a fictional world while living inside a very real production environment filled with schedules, equipment, instructions, and constant movement. When viewers eventually become emotionally attached to a character, they may never realize how much invisible discipline helped create that connection. And perhaps that is the hidden meaning behind the battle report finally emerging after 5 months. It does not necessarily need to reveal something sensational to matter. Sometimes revealing the journey is enough. Sometimes seeing the road behind a performance makes the destination feel more meaningful. Sometimes the most powerful discovery is simply realizing that the moments we admired were supported by countless moments we never saw. As fans revisit this chapter, the emotional atmosphere surrounding chasing Jade may change once again. What once felt like a distant production period can suddenly feel immediate. Old photographs can feel different. Familiar scenes can carry new significance. Memories that had begun to fade can return with surprising clarity. And Zhang Linghe's presence within that story can be viewed through a new lens, not only as a performer standing in front of the camera, but as someone who spent months helping build a fictional world that audiences would eventually enter. The passage of 5 months also creates a powerful contrast between expectation and reality. When a project is being made, nobody outside the production knows exactly what the final result will become. There are hopes, predictions, rumors, promotional images, and endless speculation. But once the project moves forward, the uncertainty begins to disappear. The audience gradually sees the character, the world, and the emotional direction. The mystery becomes familiar, yet when hidden material resurfaces, some of that original uncertainty returns. It reminds everyone that there was once a time when none of us knew what was coming. That is why this moment can feel strangely nostalgic. It is not only about new information. It is about returning to an older version of the story, one where everything was still unfinished. The characters had not yet fully entered the audience's imagination. The performances had not yet been judged. The emotional moments had not yet become memories. Everything was still being built. And somewhere inside that unfinished world was Zhang Linghe, working, waiting, performing, adjusting, and continuing forward. Whatever the exact details of the resurfaced report may reveal, the broader image remains compelling, a performer passing through a demanding creative period while the outside world waited for the results. 5 months later, the public is looking backward and asking what it missed. That question may be the most addictive part of the entire story. What else was there? What other moments passed unnoticed? What details were captured but never widely discussed? What did the production atmosphere really feel like? What did Zhang Linghe's journey look like when the cameras were not focused on him? And how much of what viewers eventually loved was shaped during those quiet hours that never became headlines? There may never be complete answers to every question, and perhaps that is part of the charm. Stories connected to entertainment often live somewhere between documented fact and the emotional imagination of the audience. The responsible way to approach resurfaced material is to separate what is confirmed from what is speculation. But, even without inventing details, there is still plenty to appreciate. The simple fact that an old chapter can return and inspire people to look more closely is a reminder of how powerful storytelling can be. For fans of Zhang Linghe, this resurfaced chasing Jade material may therefore feel like more than an update. It can feel like a reunion with a period they once followed closely. It brings back the anticipation, the curiosity, and the feeling of waiting to see what would happen next. It reminds them of why the project attracted attention in the first place and why Zhang Linghe's involvement became such a significant part of the conversation. 5 months later, the story has not disappeared. It has simply changed. The excitement of the moment has transformed into nostalgia. The uncertainty has become memory. The production has moved from present reality into something that can be revisited. And now, with this hidden battle report emerging, the past has suddenly stepped back into the spotlight. There is an almost cinematic quality to that timing. Imagine a room that has been quiet for months, filled with old photographs and fragments of a production that once dominated conversations. Then, unexpectedly, a forgotten piece of the story appears. The lights come back on. People begin looking again. Familiar faces return to screens. Old discussions awaken. Questions that seemed settled become interesting once more. And at the center of it all stands Zhang Linghe, connected to a chapter of his career that audiences are suddenly being invited to experience from another angle. Perhaps the greatest emotional lesson in all of this is that not every important moment announces itself when it happens. Some moments need time. Some stories need distance before their meaning becomes clear. Some memories need to disappear into the background before their return can make us realize how much they mattered. That is what makes the 5-month wait feel significant. The delay itself has become part of the story. It creates a bridge between then and now, between the production period and the audience's present-day perspective. It gives fans a reason to pause, look back, and reconsider what they thought they knew. And as the discussion grows, one thing becomes increasingly clear: Chasing Jade is not simply a finished project sitting in the past. For the people who worked on it and the fans who followed it, it remains a living memory. Every resurfaced image, every newly discovered detail, every old moment brought back into conversation adds another layer to that memory. Zhang Linghe's journey through the project can therefore be remembered not only through the scenes that ultimately reached viewers, but through the unseen effort that existed behind them. The long hours, the concentration, the uncertainty, the pressure, the quiet moments between performances, the countless details that had to align before a fictional world could feel real. And perhaps, after 5 months of silence, that is the real reason this hidden battle report feels so powerful. It gives the audience another chance to appreciate the journey rather than simply the destination. It reminds us that behind every polished scene is a story of preparation, patience, and persistence. Behind every character is an actor who had to build that character piece by piece. Behind every moment that makes viewers feel something is a much longer chain of moments that most people never see. So when fans look at Zhang Linghe's Chasing Jade journey again, they may no longer see it exactly as they did before. The resurfaced material changes the perspective. It encourages a deeper look at the period, a closer appreciation of the work, and a renewed curiosity about everything that happened outside the frame. 5 months passed, but the story waited. And now that another piece of it has emerged, the silence feels different. The questions feel louder, the memories feel closer, and the journey that once seemed finished suddenly feels alive again, inviting everyone to look back at Zhang Linghe, look back at Chasing Jade, and wonder just how many unseen moments were quietly shaping the story while the world was watching from the outside. Perhaps that is the most fascinating thing about entertainment history. We rarely see the whole picture while it is being created. We see fragments, we see photographs, we see performances, we hear conversations, we make assumptions. Then time passes, and another fragment appears. Suddenly the picture becomes a little clearer, the past becomes a little more vivid, and a chapter we thought we had already closed opens once again. For Zhang Linghe and Chasing Jade, that chapter has returned with an unexpected sense of mystery. 5 months of silence have